Hello and welcome to the official Hacks podcast from Max and Pineapple Street Studios. I'm Bobby Finger.
And I'm Lindsey Weber, and we are your hosts, unpacking every episode of Hacks Season 4.
Today we're talking about Episode 5 with Hacks co-executive producer Aisha Muharrar. After that, Michaela Watkins, who plays Stacy the HR rep, will also join us.
And as always, this podcast is full of spoilers. If you haven't watched the latest episode, go back and do that. Proceed with caution.
You can still sell soap while remaining authentic to your voice. It's the difference between making art and turning out content. I do not want to make a show.
This is not about what you want. It's not even about what I want. It's what they want.
Okay, let's do a quick recap of the episode and then we'll get into it. So episode 5 is called Clickable Face. It was written by Aisha Muharrar and directed by Paul W. Downs.
Begins with the focus group.
Face card not declined. She looks Gagatron sickening.
They're still fighting about Ava and Deborah, about what the tone of the show should be. Should it be political? Should it just be fluff?
Frida Kahlo didn't consult a focus group about what colors she should paint with.
She also didn't consult a pair of tweezers.
And where we end up is with Deborah featuring Dance Mom on the show, which is not pleasing to Ava.
Is Dance Mom still here?
Wait, what? Come on.
Is she? Yes.
Jimmy.
Good. Get her ready.
So this episode deals with a recurring theme in this season, which is the fight between having art that is meaningful and powerful and can make a change versus having art that can be liked by everybody and is very broadly appealing, easy. Let's just use a TikTok woman. Let's make wine jokes. Look how sexy my legs are. You know, like Ava and Deborah are constantly fighting about this particular thing, much to the chagrin of Michaela Watkins, who plays Stacy from HR.
Every single person around them is annoyed by this because this really defines the show in a way where, you know, they are at the same time pandering to execs, but then also trying to find the voice, the proper voice of the show.
A funny reveal, it's a joke, but it's also kind of serious, is that Deborah finds out that women don't like her. She's got a major problem with the female demographic on this show, which is both surprising, but also kind of makes total sense.
This focus group scene was like extremely funny. I mean, it was kind of like joke after joke for me.
Women? Oh, God.
72% of them have children, and 37% are on medication for high blood pressure.
Well, who cares about stressed out moms? They don't laugh at anything.
The thing about the focus group scene that also got me was, this isn't a humorous aspect, but it's another moment where you kind of have to get brought back into reality, because every once in a while, this show has to remind you that it's set in the real world, where even though you're like, oh, there isn't a woman hosting a late night talk show on the big three right now. Like, this is sort of a fantasy land in this sad way. And then the show reminds you, like, but in the real world, people don't like women, right? Like, this person is not liked by her own demographic for reasons that probably make a little bit of sense. And it's like, every once in a while, the show has to remind you, like, this is real and the stakes are high.
Right. And then, you know, so they are leaning into kind of what do these suburban housewives want in the most like stereotypical way? They're like, they want her to be able to be in the kitchen when Deborah's in that sequence with Anthony. And she's like, I love like cooking. I love being in the kitchen. And her like extensions are like getting in the food.
Soup, getting in the sauce. So after Deborah Vance asks the wonderfully delightful and sweet Kristen Bell to be on her show, and Kristen Bell says, oh, absolutely, like, let's exchange numbers, I'll do it. Jimmy Kimmel confronts her in the parking lot, yet another reminder that the show exists in a version of the real world, where he's like, fuck you, do not pounce on my guests, I hate you.
I just think like there is something very interesting about who's willing to kind of demonize themselves for fiction, like, but still he is Kimmel.
He's Kimmel.
And this also speaks to kind of, we've heard reference to other late night hosts kind of, oh, and they'll show up and they'll cameo and da-da-da. And then she's really getting the real tea when Jimmy Kimmel accosts her in the parking lot and is like, we hate your ass. Like,
which is also a nice,
how dare you?
It's a nice reminder of the stakes too. Because you're like, oh, right. The people that she's competing against in the big three are like huge names. They get the talent that they want. Deborah's going to have a hard time.
Everyone knows that when she has a new project, she does my show first. I got full custody when Conan died.
Oh, you own her.
Let's just say I put in my time.
So in the tail end of the episode, Deborah has had her delightful dinner with Anthony Porowski, where Anthony has shared tea on Tan France. And as she's leaving the restaurant, she spots Ava on a date with her couple friend, her throuple in total.
Her couple dates. Yeah, the couple that she's dating. And Deborah learns that Ava thinks the show is bad. And I
Yes.
think that's like, this is the big turning point where like their fundamental disagreements on what the show should be come to a head. Like they do not agree on what the show should be. And Ava essentially has to say to Deborah, like, I hate what we're putting out and I want it to be different. I feel like after every episode, I'm like, who wins? Like, who won this episode? It's Deborah.
won,
Like,
for sure.
They both know this is the more embarrassing version of the show that they want to do, but Deborah stepped up and did it. And that's what Ava can't do, is she can't step up and just make the show what they need it to be. She can't meld the ideas of what she wants to do and what the network wants them to do. And Deborah's like, I can. I'll figure it out. I'm doing it.
And even when Ava goes behind her back and sort of asserts herself as the head writer and has those cue cards changed, ultimately, she still doesn't have as much power as Deborah because Deborah's the one on mic. Deborah's the one in front of the camera. She doesn't have to read what's on the cue cards. Like, she is constantly asserting her dominance in this environment. And with that, let's get into our interview portion of this episode. Big episode because we have two guests joining us today. The first will be Aisha Muharrar, who is a co-executive producer and wrote this episode. And then you will hear our conversation with Michaela Watkins, who, of course, plays Stacy, the HR rep. And now we are so happy to be joined by Aisha Muharrar, the writer of today's episode. Aisha, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited that you're hosting this. I think you already had Ariel, so you know that Ariel is a super fan, and I was introduced to your podcast through Ariel, so it's a big thing within the Hacks room. Like,
oh my,
she's proselytizing.
What an honor!
Great.
Honestly, an honor and a privilege.
So this episode begins with a focus group session. Focus groups, always funny, always drama-filled. Have you ever had to deal with focus group data in your writing job? Like, in the many projects you've had, have you ever had to deal with, like, well, you know, Jill from Iowa says that they don't really like X, Y, or Z?
I've never had a official focus group, but I do feel when I worked on Parks and Recreation, and I think Twitter was that at the time. Like, I remember there being like reactions to episodes as they were on. People were kind of live tweeting, or the day after there'd be a response. I think that was the closest we got to it, And I remember, I think Mike, our showrunner at the time, was like also like, it's also self-selecting. It was who the writers were following on Twitter, or
Right.
if, like someone.
Right.
So it's also very specific, which I think, is what's happening with Ava too, to some extent, where it's like thinking about what your peers are thinking and wanting to impress them and stuff like that.
So this episode is all about sort of genuflecting towards the mothers who don't really like her. They keep saying you have a problem with women,
Or women have a problem with you.
Women have a problem with you.
Right.
And she's trying to tap into her wine mom center, effectively, ineffectively, that's up for debate, although I think it's pretty much objectively ineffectively. There are other moms in this episode. There's herself, because she's the mother of DJ. And then, of course, there's Dance Mom, who, when I found out that Julia Nicholson was going to be in Hacks, I think what I imagined and the only thing I was able to imagine was the complete opposite of Dance Mom.
Right.
Right.
Can you talk about the idea of this viral character? Because there's so many types of like TikTok stars in this day and age. There's so like, yes, there are Dance Mom types, but there's also singers, there's comedians. Like, how did you settle on this particular archetype of our new TikTok age?
Well, I think for this episode yes, I agree. Julianne Nicholson, she's a prestige actress. She's amazing. She's, like incredible, Mayor of Easttown. So it's definitely not, I think if you see that announcement, that's not what you're thinking, which is what we really liked about it. And, it was exciting that she was game to do it. I think in terms of the Dance Mom TikTok, it's like that is something that I feel comes up a lot now, where you have kind of the more traditional legacy media, but then you have, TikTok or new things where it's like those audiences, eclipse what the original tastemakers had. So now it's this weird convergence where it's like before someone like Deborah would have a show, she'd break someone, she'd enter Like she'd basically be able to start someone's career. But now you have someone who like already has their own following, already has their own situation, and they could bring eyes to Deborah's show. So it's this weird new power imbalance. And, even when Deborah clearly doesn't like what she sees in the audition, but she is saying, well, they have a lot of followers. And that is definitely a real thing that I feel happens all the time right now. I hear from friends all the time, whether it's an actor who felt they didn't have enough followers to get cast, or a director or a writer who had to consider something like that in the decision. And so I think that type of relationship, when we were going to do late night, we were going to have to explore that like it just looks different from how it was when Deborah was watching Carson. Like it's just a different beast now. And how are we going to incorporate that into the show? And so it was also a great way to show the tension between Deborah and Ava, because at first it seems like, oh, this is something they can agree on. But, as the episode goes on, Deborah's like, okay, I'm willing to try anything. And the audience does love it. Like, that's the other thing, too. Like, they love it.
She wins.
I was going to ask you, it's like Dance Mom appears and it's supposed to be like, we're all on the same page as thinking that's ridiculous. We're just kind of trained to be like, TikTok, bad, TV, good, like that type of thing. But then what ends up happening, which is so delightful, is like Dance Mom kind of wins you over. You're like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Like,
and there's also something about the data, too. I mean, in our room, I'm a mom, and Paul and Lucia had we have kids who are really little. We're all new to being a parent. So even the idea of like moms think like this or wine o'clock is so alien.
Right.
Like even that idea. And we talked about that too of, Ava even questioning that idea of like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Like, who is this mom in theory? And like, they all love these same three actresses. Like, it's just following, it's the so-called numbers are there, but then it's like, well, who do they talk to? It's again with the focus group type of thing. So I think that there's a questioning of that too, of like, who is this imaginary audience that you're trying to make fall in love with you? And is it even real, or is it based on just like advertising, like demographics?
Sure, but you can't deny that Dance Mom hits. Like,
No,
that's the thing.
and
It's
that's
like,
an audience.
Sorry,
right.
Dance Mom hits.
And also, like, there aren't just moms in the audience. Everyone's loving Dance Mom. Like, she's
Dance Mom
lighting up
crosses
all the
all
boards. She's
demographics.
lighting up all the boards.
It's very like 2010s of memes on TV where you kind of didn't know what you were going to get. And I'm sure that was a very interesting time for those producers who spent their whole jobs reaching out to people on the internet being like, do you want to come on our daytime talk show?
Yeah, I mean, and that's another thing where it's like it's Kayla's idea. And I think that's the great thing about Kayla is that she's not as precious about, I'd say, the prestige of something. It's like, I sold this Lassie reboot off of just a dog I signed. Like, she wants to like sign people. She wants to make things happen. Whereas Jimmy is a young person too, but he definitely has this like legacy brand with wanting to live up to his father, and he really believes in Deborah and Ava from a creative point of view. It's a lot about integrity for him. Whereas Kayla is like, okay, I was in a meeting, I heard we need moms. I went on TikTok.
I Googled Dance Mom.
I went looked up moms. Who has the most followers? Like, oh, this seems cute. Let's do it. And there's no, she doesn't have any hesitation. There's no like moral quandary of like, is this right? Or is this Deborah's voice? Or how, it's just, okay, this is going to get a result. And she's right, in that way she's right. And that's why it is helpful for them to have Kayla on the team.
Yeah, there's a scene too where you brought up Jimmy and Kayla where they give like Dance Mom like a pep talk, but it's also kind of like they're giving themselves a pep talk.
I can't be on TV. I just make content on my phone.
Listen, it is scary, but honestly, Kayla and I grew up here, so we really know LA. And the truth is, everybody's intimidated.
Everybody. They're just pretending like they're not.
To be honest, imposter syndrome is an epidemic. Even I struggle with it.
Not me.
Well, okay, a lot of people do, especially women.
A lot of women and Jimmy.
What I really like about Jimmy and Kayla, too, is that they are kids who were born in LA and they grew up here. They're always near the business. And I think that perspective, there's often the story about LA is a newcomer hops off the bus.
Yes.
Like they're on the tarmac. But for people who grew up here, I think that's really interesting. And I like whenever there's a reference to Jimmy and Kayla's life before they were working together, when they were young together, they know each other's parents. And yeah, the specific thing about growing up in a world that other people see from the outside and assume is so glamorous. But if you're having a kid's point of view, then there's no way you can look at it that same way. So I like that they were able to tell her, look, we've grown up here, we know what it's like, and kind of calm her down in that way. I love Jimmy and Kayla as a pairing, as many people obviously, but I really like when they have things that show their relationship before, like the joke about Kayla's plan about getting the Olsen twins back together. Like that is like, in my mind, it's like they've talked about this before, it's come up, like maybe they were at an event for one of their parents. Like this conversation has happened. They have a life outside of even their working relationship together.
So one of the central conflicts of this episode is the creative differences between Ava and Deborah, because Ava is, sad about not being eligible for a Peabody Award. Deborah just wants to top the charts. But what are your thoughts about that kind of comedy, and maybe especially in late night? Like, what should a late night show be doing? Should it be more comedic or should it be more political?
Well, I think you have different shows doing different things. And I think for Deborah and Ava, it's, when they were working on their material together, it was about making the other one laugh. Like, that's how they'd know
Yeah.
something was working. And that is true of, that's how we are in the room, where it's like, if we're laughing together, and that means, okay, this joke is working. Like, I was working on writing a book, and it was by myself, and people have often asked, what's the difference between working on the book and being on a show? And I'm like, well, the people. Like, if you write a joke in a book and then you're like, I think, is that funny or is that, but when you're in a room, you have other people
Right.
responding. And if you're on the same page, like luckily we are at Hacks, where we, are all pretty much on the same page in terms of what we find funny, then that can be a great moment. But Deborah and Ava, like, that's the thing that made their relationship special. And that's the thing that they've now severed. Like, they don't have that connection. So I feel like they're both, without having each other, they're both going to their own separate metrics of what makes something a success. And for Deborah, that's eyes on the product. That's like money. That's, what are we pulling in? Like, it's all numbers based. So the data thing, I think that really helps her, because she's like, okay, I can work with this. She leans too far into it. And, Ava even says, like, oh, that can be a helpful thing to have. We can blend it in, but we don't want to use it. We don't want to write backwards based on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for Ava, like, she was working on this other show before the late night opportunity for Deborah came up. And it wasn't like she was having a bad time or it wasn't going well. She was doing really well. They wanted to promote her there. She
Right.
enjoyed working there. It was, to some extent, if Ava on her own as just a comedy person, that show really fit Ava. And so I think that going back into that world and seeing that her coworkers aren't even watching the show, like, are kind of like, yeah, I saw Courtney Cox like drumming, and like I saw The Golden Bachelor. That's gonna hurt, because Deborah and Ava don't have.
And they're not being cruel.
No, they're not being
Right.
cruel. It's just kind of like, and they're assuming she's excited about this too, So it only hurts more because, like, she knows I don't want to be doing that. But to them, they're like, yeah, The Golden Bachelor, like, you got him. That's great. She's like, I didn't want that, because again, like, they don't
Right.
have their duo bond that they normally have as a guiding light. So I really, when we talked about that in the room this season, of like them both without each other going to like what their core, what they would be without the other one. And kind of where they started in season 1. Like, they're both kind of drifting off to where they were before they started working together.
I think the last scene that we want to talk about is not quite the end of the episode, but it's in the tail end. The scene when Deborah, after a successful show, despite getting her hair in the jam, goes to dinner with Anthony Porowski. And then we see that Ava is on a date with her couple. They're having a little throuple date. And Deborah has like the perfect Deborah moment where she's like, I'm going to crash the shit out of this.
Right.
And I'm just going to make Ava uncomfortable. And it's a really interesting moment because it kind of backfires on Deborah at the end of it.
But don't stay out too late. Remember, the show's at 11:30. I hope you're watching every night.
Well,
What?
I told him to wait for it to get good.
Yeah, I felt for Deborah in the writing of that, and felt not sorry for her, but just sad, because it's also she's revealing a vulnerability that she didn't even realize she had. She's
Yeah.
not going into it thinking it like this is like, oh, obviously they're watching the show. And I think there's also something
yeah.
between like Deborah and Ava. They've been going back and forth with each other, but to some extent there's also like this sense that their back and forth has a lot to do with just the anger they have in terms of their relationship. But for Ava to tell other people, not trying to like make a dig at Deborah, but just telling these people separately not to watch the show, and not telling her
brutal.
that she lives with Deborah, like, it's all, these are all lines that Deborah set up, right? Like, she's the one who wanted to, cut Ava out. She's the one who's not forgiving Ava. But then seeing that, like, Ava hasn't mentioned they live together, the effect of what Deborah has put into motion, that she comes into the scene kind of wanting to play a little comedy game, and then realizing that there's this distance that Ava has put up, and it's not just a front at work, it's something that's real between them now.
Right.
So I really felt for it, and as always, Jean did an amazing job. So like I feel like as much as I felt it when we were writing it, seeing it on screen is also
She
totally
pulled it off.
different. Yeah.
It's important. Like in this moment of the season, when they're still a little bit at odds, as a viewer, you're really grasping at all those moments where you can be reminded that they really do care about each other still, despite everything. And they care about what the other thinks about them.
Right,
you
especially
know?
creatively,
Yeah.
right? Like they really care what each other thinks creatively still, even if they don't like each other at this point.
Yes.
As
And are
people.
clashing at the office.
Yeah.
Clashing at
in
the
office.
office.
That's the subtitle for the season.
So thank you so much, Aisha, for being
you.
with us. This was so much
So fun.
We love the episode.
Thank you.
Love the season.
It was so nice
Congratulations.
talking to you.
Yes,
We
thanks
had a
for coming
blast.
on. This was great.
We are here with Stacy from HR herself. It's Michaela Watkins. Michaela, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. Stacy herself is in the house with us.
Stacy from HR.
Stacy from HR.
What I love about Stacy is that when you show up, you're kind of like, oh, this is such a good cameo. Like, will she stick around? Probably not. It's HR. Like, it's like they're going to have their meeting and then she's going to go. And then they just find like the most beautiful way to make sure you are always there.
You're always there. It's sort of like you're always expecting the camera to pan and see Stacy holding her water bottle, just observing and being so disturbed by what she's seeing.
I'm so glad you noted the water bottle. That was that was a character thing that I was like, she's just always holding her water. Like she's, obsessively has her water bottle and a giant bag that she's pulling things in and out of all the time.
Do you think Stacy is flavoring her water? I'm seeing her put a little packet of something in there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
She's not drinking water raw,
Right, but it's probably like Nestea or something really outdated.
Crystal Light. It's
Crystal
not like
Light for
electrolytes.
sure.
It's like the OG flavor.
Yes. It's like
she's buying it on eBay in bulk. You're also doing a lot of, for this one, physical comedy, which not just the water bottle being like a prop beyond props, but like you take a big splat.
When I got up to start speaking, it said she put her tooth through her lip. And so when I came back up, I was like that, like I'm gonna maybe get to work, and so that was the only like sort of flair that I felt like I brought. But I don't know because they're like, we can't understand what you're saying.
I'm with you too all the time. You're obsessed with data and demos. I mean, get over it. And you're obsessed with making this show seem so highbrow. What? Yes, honey. I see you on your phone constantly Googling when are the Peabody Award submission dates? December 1st. December 1st.
Was there stunt double work in that moment when you fall right on the floor? Like, how was that shot?
There was a black mat on the black floor. So this woman who was dressed like me, who was a stunt woman, did a flying leap at it over and over and over again.
Oh my God, that's so funny to watch. I'm sorry.
It was really funny and horrifying. And there was like a live studio audience still in there while she was doing that. And then it was my turn, and they were like, just this, that, the other thing. And I loved it. I would just like get some air and go flying. They're like, too much air. It's like you wouldn't have a face left if you fell really on the floor like that. So they pulled back with her, and then they went in closer with me flying, and then, yeah.
Oh, that's fun. You do your own stunts.
Have you ever heard of someone having such bad behavior at work or engaging in such bad behavior at work that they've required an HR chaperone? Is this lore for you?
I'm having a think. On my sets, no, that's never happened. It never has. Like, put it this way, it probably should have happened at times a while back, but we didn't have, verbiage for that.
There's a chance that seeing HR Stacy might give some people some ideas because she works. She gets the job done in the show. Her being there is like quite effective.
Yeah, she breaks tension.
She really does. She really does. There's one moment, it just made me laugh so hard when I watched it, and nobody else is going to clock it or get it. So I'm just going to say it on here. But when HR Stacy takes them to the bathroom with her.
This is one of the best scenes. And her feet are under the stall the whole time while they're screaming at each other. Yeah.
But do you hear the level of stream that is coming out of Stacy?
Oh,
loud.
yeah. Oh,
It's loud.
And in case you've forgotten, I'm the face of this show. No one in that focus group brought you up even once, if you can believe that.
What? 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 What
Okay, change of plans. Do you guys actually mind stepping out?
Oh, for the love of...
And remember your tools. Compassion, not condescension.
Okay, we'll wait for Stacy to finish this conversation.
Well, it's gonna be a while.
Wait for me. I'll be done in
Is
a
it the
second.
only time Stacy says, you have to leave me alone for a second?
It's really good.
There's like a change of plans. Jesus, Stacy. I mean, it goes to figure. She drinks a lot of water. She's got a
Right.
She really
I didn't
that
even
water
put
bottle.
that together. She's always
She's
drinking water. Her Crystal Light.
Yeah, that water bottle is huge.
You have done so many voice roles in the past. Like you're known for your voices, your voice work. Well, how do you develop a voice like Stacy's? Because it's so specific and like and grating, but also so funny. Like you don't mind listening to it, despite the fact that it's kind of like
Is
nails on
that
the
true?
chalkboard.
Thank you very much, because I can't listen to Stacy. I cannot stomach Stacy. Every time I would like go from my cute outfit and my nice hair into Stacy was like a moment. And then I would have to walk around the entire lot like that and go get coffee at the thing and be like, hi. But it's like the tours are going by and the trolley trams, and I'm just like in these ill-fitted, bad outfits wearing my Clarks. Oh, by the way, most comfortable outfits ever worn in any show I've ever done. And I'm not mad about that because whenever they say, do you have allergies? I always say heels. But I would say I usually try to tap into someone that I know that may have triggered a response from me before.
Do you think Stacy, at least at this point in the season, episode 5, thinks that she will be successful, or thinks that these two will finally bury the hatchet? Or do you think she thinks all is lost?
That is a philosophical level league of their sea I was not prepared for. I don't think Stacy is well after this last season. I don't think that I don't know. When I think of Stacy, I think, and how did this very annoying woman climb the ranks that she has, that she's now assigned to the like 2 most important people on this, program. Like, who thought that she was such a people person that she should be actually promoted? And I just feel like she is kind of that person, like at every company, right? You're just like, how do you fly under the radar and fall up this long and then get to where you are, where you're just totally unaware of how completely annoying you are? How has nobody just been like, absolutely not, no Stacy? It seems like there's just like, let's get Stacy in here. And probably because of that thing that you just said, like her personality is wired in such a way that it makes everybody behave, because if there's one thing they can all come together on, it's, how much they can't stand her. And that's really unifying. And I think that's probably how she got there. What I don't think she was really ever used to before is somebody who's like, comedians are so uncensored and so unfiltered. And I don't think that she was used to them being so obviously mean to her back,
Mm-hmm.
and like mean girling her in a way. And so I think that was very scary and confronting. And I think that it caused her to have some childhood trauma, probably from summer camp when she was ostracized and not invited to the luau cookout. And she had to go, she had a bit of a nervous break and has to do something about that.
Oh, no. Stacy. Now I'm like so deeply moved by her story.
Yeah. Poor
I
Stacy.
really am.
Right.
I really want the best for Stacy.
Do you?
Always. I do.
Away from me, but like generally.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I want her like, where do we see Stacy? I don't know what Stacy's future holds, but I'm guessing I've had a lot of ideas actually about Stacy. I feel like she probably is working at a senior living facility.
We're holding prayers for Stacy from HR to cross over to another Max property and do a White Lotus season.
That would be so Oh my God, they should do a
Should be great.
mashup.
I mean, Stacy will die, but like whatever. she will die.
Yeah. Oh,
sorry.
Easily, but not as part of the like drama,
No.
just
No,
as
no,
like
no.
an
aside.
Yeah.
She'll fall.
Like just
She'll
to
get
get
food poisoning.
just to get somebody else in there who is actually like part of the plot.
Yeah.
She goes first. She goes too early. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for
for being
chatting
here.
with
This
us.
was wonderful.
Thank you.
It was really
It
fun.
was super fun. Thank you so much for having me.
And that's it for this week. This has been the official Hacks podcast, and I am your host, Bobby Finger.
And I'm Lindsey Weber. We'll be back next week to break down episode 6 with a very special guest, Hannah Einbinder.
This podcast is a production of Max and Odyssey's Pineapple Street Studios. Our executive producers are Gabrielle Lewis, Barry Finkel, and Jayanne Barry.
Our producers are Melissa Akiko Slaughter and Ben Goldberg. Our associate producer is Natalie Peart. Darby Maloney is our editor.
This episode was mixed by Hannes Brown. Pineapple's head of sound engineering is Raj Makija. Pineapple's senior audio engineers are Marina Pais and Pedro Alvira. This episode was engineered by Javier Cruces.
Special thanks to Kenya Reyes, Alison Cohen-Surokach, Aaron Kelly, and Becky Rowe. Production music is courtesy of Max. You can watch new and old episodes of Hacks on Max. Big special thanks to Aisha and Michaela for joining us today on the show.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.
That demo is very important to ad sales. They spend the most.
Are you saying women be shopping?
Statistically, they do be.